Hello everyone, welcome to this weekly update video for Monday the 11th of September. Just before we begin, I should say I was asked last week if there was going to be one, and when do you do these? I do them when there's enough to make a weekly update video. You've got to remember that these are done when there is news relevant to the blind flight simulation community. I'm not going to make one, for example, this week I could talk about the FS Labs Concorde newly in P3D version 5, or I could talk about the Aerosoft A330 having a progress update for Microsoft. All of those things are great, but they're not really relevant to us, okay? I mean, unless there's some big hot topic in the community that might tangentially be related to us, we're probably not gonna cover it. Otherwise, these videos could get crazy long. And same thing, if there's not much that's happened within our community for a week, I'm probably not going to do a video because it'll end up just being a 3-minute video of me just covering one tidbit, and it's really not worth it. So I like these. I think 10 minutes is about the average length. It's probably about right, sometimes longer, sometimes a tad shorter. So that's why. Anyway, moving on to what's been going on this week. So firstly, I should say that if you go onto TFM's blog, you'll see that they're now incorporating some video content into their blog posts, and that will be the primary way it seems going forward, at least on a trial basis, to get more engagement amongst the community and to kind of be able to get, I think it's, I don't know, some people might like reading textual-based info to an extent, and they will still have that present if it's a really important update that kind of is documenting a key part of a development cycle or something. But kind of from week to week, it's nice to actually hear things described to you in the words of the dev or devs themselves, from Andy and Jason's perspective. And I think that's one of the reasons people like WhatsApp so much, and why we have these communities that thrive, is that the whole voice message thing. People like it because it's a bit more personable and it's a bit more engaging. So go check out that video and keep an eye out on there, because if you're primarily looking for TFM, of course we also cover other things, other important add-ons and news and upcoming cool projects for blind pilots. But if you're primarily looking at TFM as well, then give that channel a subscribe as well if you haven't already, because they are going to be hopefully coming out with some posts similar to the one you'll see up there that talks about what we're going to talk about now, which is vPilot and VATSIM. So we did have the TFM anniversary event last week. I hope everyone really enjoyed it. It was pretty cool to see so many people out in force from Houston to Toronto. Thanks to Houston for coming on, to Toronto Centre for coming on, and the en route sectors. It was really exciting. And I think one of the things that people maybe noticed a little bit more that they maybe hadn't noticed, especially those in Microsoft who maybe don't fly on VATSIM quite as much and kind of did because it was an event, was that we do have a bit of a problem in that the messages are not read to you on the frequency and in terms of private messages. That's because in P3D they are sent to SimConnect, which TFM can read, so that's why it can read GSX and it can read vPilot messages in P3D, but in Microsoft they're not sent to SimConnect, so it cannot. And don't get me wrong, this is not a show-stopping bug. People, myself included, have hundreds of hours on VATSIM using Microsoft. It's simply an ease of use thing and just having things at your fingertips. So if you get a private message through the contact me, you do have to find the window, and then you have to go over and find the last private message tab that you have. And obviously if you've got quite a few message tabs open or things, or previous controllers tabs open, it can be a little bit difficult and time consuming. Same thing with Unicom. Granted, there are points during a flight, especially at cruise, where you probably don't want to have Unicom spamming you with messages being read through the screen reader, because it's probably not as relevant. If you're passing over London, for example, you've got maybe 3-4 major airports below you, and you're going to get a lot of messages. But if you are coming in on arrival or departing, there may be people who don't use voice. Unicom voice is kind of a great way and probably the primary way around the vicinity of an airport to communicate, but pilots are allowed to use text as well, and you've got to be paying attention to that text frequency, or on the frequency, and that can be difficult in 2020, because let's be realistic, we're not going to tab over and check every time we hear a radio message sent through via text, which is why it's important to be careful in the way that you announce, and always to announce before you reposition, which I think we all do pretty well. But it's a bit of a faff, right? It's a bit of a problem. So I mentioned it to Andy and kind of said, is there any way around this? And there were several options kind of spitballed around. You know, it was going to be, we could use the Toke library to send it through to the screen reader if the vPilot developer would do that. Or maybe if he could put some code in there that would interface with C# and be able to send it through to TFM, that was another option. And so I did drop him a message, but he wasn't able to do any of that due to time constraints. So he pointed us in the direction of a vPilot plugin. vPilot plugins have been around for quite a long time, and I was surprised kind of that they were still in use, but you know, they're still around. They used to be used quite a bit back in X-Plane and the FSX days, and yeah, they've definitely been around for quite a while. But Andy was able to dive in there full steam ahead and start creating a vPilot plugin for TFM. Now, don't get me wrong, vPilot is a great application, and it is actually probably one of the most accessible applications we have to deal with as flight simmers. You know, as many people know, there are a lot of kind of junk applications that we have to deal with that we don't really want to have to deal with, but we kind of need them, and parts of them are not great. You know, whether it's parts of Microsoft Flight Simulator at the minute that are accessibility wise a bit janky, even parts of First Officer can be a bit janky. You know, it happens from time to time that you get an application that's just not great, but you kind of want to use it, so you're just going to get around it. vPilot's not like that. I mean, it's been a pleasure to use vPilot, to be honest with you. I've never had an issue with it, really. It's a great piece of software. But what this plugin will allow, of course, is for messages to be read by TFM, which is one problem, but also quite a bit more. And whilst I don't think it's necessary for us to have a full vPilot client within TFM, given how decent the current vPilot client is, I think there's a lot of potential here to make things work in a more streamlined manner, so that if you're looking for a list of nearby controllers, or you want to look at a list of nearby aircraft, you can just pull up things through hotkeys. I mean, we all know, for example, how janky the TFM traffic dialog can be in certain places. Whether they'll be able to pull the aircraft list from vPilot and include it in TFM natively now and sort it by distance or something, you never know. There's so many potential opportunities here. If you want to look up where there's control, if you want to quickly check something rather than tabbing over to the vPilot window, I think it's going to be very useful. Like I said, I don't think vPilot is going to be, that's not what we're suggesting, that vPilot is going to be made irrelevant. You know, as I say, you're still going to have it opening in the background, and it still might be necessary to use it for certain parts. You know, as I say, it's a very accessible application as it is. You know, nothing's ever perfect, of course, but it's very good. So, you know, this is going to make things a lot easier, and although it's going to take a little bit of time to be created, I think it's going to be pretty useful and very cool that Andy's been able to pull this off. That's the vPilot side. The only other thing to note with regard to TFM is that the major heartbeat of TFM is being altered, as we know, and currently the source build has quite a few errors within it, and it's going to take a little while to get TFM back up on its feet. So if you are using the source build and you're experiencing issues, yeah, pretty much not, you know, I don't know precisely, but not much of TFM is connected up and working within that right now. And this is the thing about using source builds, it's at your own risk, and I would highly recommend, if you can have multiple instances of TFM installed, do that if you really want to test the source builds. And you know, they're not really for everyday flights, if you're especially flying online, or you kind of just want the bread and butter to be there and everything to work, no issues. It's not really what the source builds are for. But if there are issues, I think they probably know about it right now, and they're trying to get TFM back up on its feet. Other than that, that's really it. But the vPilot news, I think, was quite big and was the main part of this week. And I'm really glad that, you know, given how 2020 and 2024 are going to be going forward, kind of the main simulators for us, I think, that this is going to be a problem that will be solved, and actually some very cool other features are coming out of it as well. So, you know, it's going to give people more fine control over what they're seeing around them and how quickly they're able to get to important information on VATSIM. So I hope you enjoyed. Any questions in the comments? And I should add, Across the Land was yesterday. I did stream it on a bit of an impromptu basis. It was very cool. 6 hours of non-interrupted ATC, uninterrupted, I should say. So that was kind of very cool to see the magic of VATSIM, if you want to go watch that. And Across the Pond is also coming up in October. That is on the 28th. Slots I do not believe are available yet, but they will be relatively soon. So keep an eye out for that if that's an event you want to do, and get looking up on those oceanic procedures and CPDLC, using easy CPDLC, great application as well. Or at least it was until an update was released that kind of made it a bit wonky for us, but you can still download the old version from GitHub. So that's something to look into, and then you won't be quite as stressed out on the day because you'll be all clued in. So best of luck if you're trying to get a slot for that, and I shall see you in the next video.